Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker. Thank you for joining me today. For today's card, I'm going to be using the brand new Outline Butterflies stamp from Simon Says Stamp. This is a cling rubber background stamp. So before I started stamping, I took the foam pad out of my Misti Tool so that I'd have enough room for that red rubber stamp. I'm stamping this background with Versamark ink onto a piece of Bristol smooth paper, which I prepped with my powder tool. I then embossed this background using Icicle embossing powder from Brutus Monroe, which is a really nice clear embossing powder. I'm going to be doing some ink blending on top of this embossing using some Distress Oxide inks. That embossing is going to resist all of the ink that I put on top of it, so when I'm done with all of the ink blending, the stamped image will be nice and clear and white. While I'm doing the blending, it doesn't look like those lines are nice and white, and that's just because the ink is actually sitting on top of those embossed lines. So when I'm done with all of the ink blending, I'll take a nice clean cloth and I'll go over the entire panel really well, and this will wipe away any of the ink that's sitting on top of that embossing and leave you with a nice crisp image. The colors that I'm using for the blending are Squeezed Lemonade, Spiced Marmalade, Picked Raspberry, and Wilted Violet. For the sentiment on my card, I'm using the Love You Mama stamp set. This is a Kathy Zilski stamp set from Simon Says Stamp, and it's really great for Mother's Day cards. It's a little bit difficult to see, but I have a piece of vellum in my Misti Tool, which I went over with a powder tool, and I'm stamping on that with Versamark ink, and then I embossed it with Alabaster white embossing powder. I stamped the Mama sentiment as well as the butterfly from the stamp set, but I don't actually end up using that butterfly on my card in the end. Once I finished the heat embossing, I used some scissors in order to fussy cut out that word. Using my ATG gun, I adhered the background panel that I created earlier onto an A2 size card base. I added some really tiny pieces of foam tape behind the letters on that vellum sentiment so that you won't be able to see them when I actually pop this up on the card. It did take a little bit of extra time in order to get all of those foam pieces cut and placed, but I think it's really worth it because I love the dimension that it creates. Once I got that word placed, I realized I wanted a second, smaller sentiment, so I took the Love You stamp from the same stamp set, and I stamped it onto some Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock using Gina Design's Jet Black Amalgam ink. I used my tonic trimmer in order to cut it down into a really tiny strip, and then I popped it up with foam tape above the word Mama, and I used my T-square ruler in order to make sure that it was nice and straight. Alright, so at this point I have a really nice looking card, and I could have stopped there, but I decided to take it to the next level with this next step. Using my white Prismacolor pencil, I started to fill in some of the areas on all of the butterflies. I tried to concentrate the white color on the inner portion of the butterfly's wings, and then slowly have it fade out as it got to the ends of the wings. I didn't add any of this white pencil to the bodies of the butterflies or any of the little details on the wings. This step did take a little bit of time to do, but it was really pretty easy, and I think that it really adds something really special to the card. The background was perfectly fine and usable before this step, but adding this small amount of white pencil to the butterflies gives this background so much more depth than it had before. One important tip that I have for if you're going to do something like this, and pretty much for if you're ever using Prismacolor pencils, is to make sure that you keep your pencil really nice and sharp while you're coloring. And actually, that's not just with Prismacolor pencils, that's with any colored pencils that you're going to be using. It's always a good idea to keep your pencil tip nice and sharp. Another tip that I would give is to always be aware of how much pressure you're using while you color. It's a lot better to use a really gentle pressure and let that color slowly build up instead of pressing down with your pencil really hard. Once I finished adding all of the white Prismacolor pencil to those butterflies, I moved on to my finishing touches. I added a few different sizes of Moonshine clear sequins from Simon Says Stamp, and I glued those down using my Gina Designs Connect glue. The last thing that I did to finish up this card is I took my Wink of Stella glitter brush and I went over that smaller sentiment, and then I added some sparkle here and there all over the butterflies in the background. Here's a closer look at the finished card, and you can kind of see all of that sparkle that I just added to those butterflies in the background. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you really enjoyed this card using the Outline Butterflies background stamp from Simon Says Stamp. All of the supplies that I used for today's card can be found in the description down below. If this is your first time on my channel and you enjoyed watching today, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. I do new card videos every single week, and I'm going to be back with another one really soon. Again, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you, and I hope you have a good day today.